Hey folks, I am back home, so we are back to work. Today I'm gonna kind of show you how I take this, which is just my foam clay and EVA foam that I've painted with, to my mistake, a satin finish green paint. That's why it's got that kind of plasticky sheen to it. This is not the look we're going for, but I think it was a good base color to start with before working up. And we're gonna go from this to this. No, of course I have to adjust my camera. Okay. Now you'll just see here just a lot more character in general to this whole thing. And this is actually a relatively easy process to get these kind of colors and to get it to pop like this. So I'm just gonna go through how we do that with just some simple painting techniques, okay? Okay, so I'd like to start with a base paint just to cover everything and just to get us, halfway there to begin with. And after that, I like to start darkening up all the grooves and all the deep recesses of that. And in this particular case, I'm gonna go with a little bit of black and a little bit of this darker turquoise, which I think in the final product is not really gonna come through, but I kind of want to just keep everything uniform. And so we'll just do a little of that and a little of that. If you're doing a big project and you need to recreate it, then you need to get a little bit more specific than a little of this and a little of that. You might want to try and go like 50-50 or something like that. But for this case, we're just going to kind of eyeball it, because the great thing about this particular costume is that it doesn't really require a lot of perfection to it. Okay, so we're gonna take it and we'll just start with this dark space right here. And we're gonna do that. And we're going to try and brush parallel to the grooves. Okay, see like this little groove right here. We're gonna try and get the paint in there and all these little bits and pieces as well. Now before this dries, what I'll do is I'll take a paper towel and I'll just wipe it. Okay, and you'll see the dark is going to retain deeper into the crevices, and so we're just going to continue this process all over. Okay, making sure you get deep down in all those little spaces. If you feel like you're having trouble getting the paint into a particular spot, that's good. That's the sort of space you absolutely want to get the paint into. Okay. You might need to be a little careful with your brushing. For example, right here, you might want to brush in this direction, because if you brush parallel to the grooves, you're going to actually brush the paint out, and that's not what we want. That's the exact opposite of what we want. Okay. Now this technique is going to overall darken the entire paint scheme of what you've done. And that's okay, that's just kind of one of those things that you will just kind of plan for. Now when we add in the additional layers later on, we're gonna bring it back out again and brighten it up. Okay, now you can see this is not an incredibly laborious practice. This is just we're just going through. We're just trying to get those little grooves there to pop out just like that. Okay, it's still wet now, so you're kind of not getting the full effect. But it's gonna build up over time, and the effect is gonna be cumulative. But basically, I mean, in some circumstances, you might even want to start just spray painting everything black and then just bring it out from there. That way your darks are incredibly dark. if that's the sort of look you want to go for. In this particular case, this is not a dark character necessarily. You know, he's made of trees and moss and stuff like that, and so ultimately black, absolute black, is just not really going to be a color or characteristic of his color scheme. It's dark green, sure, dark brown, absolutely, but absolute black, no, that's not really his look. And you can kind of already see this area here already has a lot more character than up here, you know, by a mile. So we'll just continue with this for the rest of the piece here. Okay, so, you know, 5 minutes later, I'll save you the boring stuff. Essentially, got the whole piece covered. You know, you really want to get the dark into these little pock marks here. That's all over the place, because it's just going to make it pop that much better. So now we're going to do the inverse. We're going to start adding some highlights in. So we'll grab just a basic green paint that's not glossy. And we're going to use quite a bit. So this is just going to be a dry brushing technique, and for this we're going to use this really beat up bad brush right here. And we're going to pull some off. We're going to just do this number. We want paint all over the bristles, but we don't want a lot of paint. We're going to come over here, and we're going to brush against the grain here. Okay. You'll go through a lot of paint this way because the paint is so thinly distributed on the brush. It tends to dry really quickly on the bristles, and but it's a great way to, you know, lightly start adding more color in. Now, if at any point in time you get a big glob and you're not happy with it, you know, use your finger, just rub it, and just do that. I mean, get dirty. Get dirty here. Okay. Now this is doing pretty good already. I mean, basically, how much you want to do this and how much you want to brighten it up is entirely dependent upon what you want your final look to look like. I want this to be definitely green, but I still want it to look kind of dark and murky. I like it. It almost has a little bit of a glowish look to it. I debated quite a bit what color to give him. No, that's pretty bright. Because his color scheme does change pretty drastically throughout the movie based on the location that he's at and the lighting. And I'll show you what I mean here in a minute a little bit more. You know, based on his based off this picture here of his makeup, it looks like he's actually pretty drab. Oh geez, that was quite a bit. Pretty drab in studio, whereas in the film scenes, it's much brighter. All right, so here we are. Okay, and this just makes all that detail pop. You know, we're getting there. We're starting to get there. So let me show you about his color scheme here. Now, this is an issue I had with Stargate as well. Is that so much of the look in the movie is dependent upon the lighting. Now you'll see here, I mean, this is just an off grayish brown. His face here is essentially mostly brown. He's got little bits of green here and here, but this is in stark contrast to what we see in the movie, where he's blue. He's blue here, and I think it looks great. I think he looks kind of like magical and ethereal and stuff like that. But ultimately, this is not going to be the color I want to go with. And the colors are drastically different depending on the lighting that we have in each scene. And so, honestly, actually, the poster is pretty good because it's kind of like a nice happy medium. He is definitely a green knight, and so it's just kind of like, well, where do you want to go with it? Because here, I mean, this is completely brown. And that's just not quite the look I want. I definitely want a more robust greenish color. So you know, it's the different top coats you put on this are going to have a different effect, and it's going to be a cumulative effect. This now is too dark and too monochromatic. That is another issue with a lot of painting that I see, is people make things very monochromatic, especially metal. They'll just make metal gray or something like that, and no metal is gray because it's reflective, and so you're going to have blues and browns and reds and all sorts of different colors like that. So we need to add some more into this. All right, so we'll get on to our next layer. All right, so our next step here, as I said before, it's just too green. It's too saturated. Okay, we want to bring it down a little bit. We want to add some browns in. I almost want it to be maybe a little bit more dirty or dusty or dry looking. And so I had this particular brown paint laying around. And so this will be the next layer of dry brushing here. I did just kind of wash my brush here and try to dry it pretty good, because again, too much moisture, too much water, is gonna end up bleeding into your cracks here, and you don't want that. You want a dusting of paint, if at all possible. So we're gonna get this coated good, but fairly dry. And we're gonna go at it again. Okay. And you can, you know, I am trying to actually hit the edges on this. See, that's perfect right there. Almost as if the edge of the wood is going from a vibrant green to, it's kind of drying out a little bit. You know, it's drying out at the edges. And this is just one of the many ways you can add more dimension to your painting. I did this on my Raw mask. I've done this on other cosplays. You go back in with different colors and you just start adding extra layers. Okay. Look at that. Took 2 minutes, and we're already kind of there. Now this is a good time to start putting these things side by side. Now on this larger mask, I went in after the fact. And you know, we can just do that right now. So take your brown and go back to your green here. And we'll just get a little bit going like that. Okay. And we're just gonna mix this up, and we're gonna get something kind of halfway between the two, just like so. Okay, and that's pretty good right there. Maybe a little bit more brown. And from here, we can go in. Oops, see, I got too much paint. Too much paint on there. Okay. And start adding in maybe just little streaks here and there. You want to just highlight a particular bit. You know, it's like that was good. It was good with the dusting. Let's add a little bit more in or so. Okay, and again, this is blending the two different color schemes together, and it's just going to add more dimension to the color, and that is almost always a good thing, I feel. Just hit these ends here. These ends are really kind of, you know, they've been, you know, theoretically they've been rubbing against things more than some of the deeper recesses parts. They're going to be rubbing on branches, and a lot of times when things rub on things, they tend to lighten in color. You know, think of like a pair of like jeans that have been worn out. You know, they typically lighten up. You know, sometimes you can find these, maybe some of the brown parts are just a little too, it's a little too brown. It looks a little too dry. And, you know, I'm just gonna emphasize this particular streak of wood here. Just a little bit more, just to add more variation within this, because it's just gonna make it look better. Some of these deep recesses, it doesn't even matter, you know. No one's really gonna get that close to it, but at the same time, you want to try to pull out some of those inner details if possible. Let's see, maybe find some of the bits that maybe kind of smudged. Maybe the paint was a little too heavy when you were dry brushing, and you kind of want to cover it up a little. Like right here, this is not, it doesn't really look like anything. I'm not particularly thrilled with that. So let's try and hide that a little bit. Oh, this is the back of the head. I don't know if anyone's not put two and two together yet, but yeah, this is just the back piece here. You know, and go from there. Now, this process can be as long or as short as you want to make it. I mean, I think a lot of people would have stopped after the first dry brushing of the brighter green paint. I'm pretty happy overall with this particular look right here. And I am at this time kind of debating if I want to, oh, where was that one smudge out on this one? You can see right there, it just looks like a paint glob. It doesn't look like natural. There we are. That's a little bit better. Maybe a little bit more right there on that. No. I mean, you can get really fancy. You can grab. I think I have some green and purple color shifting paint from Ra that I'm debating, just because. Well, there's no purple in this. It's like, that's not the point. The point is it's going to add just a subtle additional effect and dimension to the color, which again, I just think is almost always a good thing. But at the same time, you don't want to overdo any of it. And you see here, this is supposed to be kind of coming to like a knot right here. But I feel like the knot is kind of the same color as everything else around it. So we're going to kind of emphasize the higher portion here. I don't know how well this will work, but I just kind of want to bring it out just a little bit more. Yeah, yeah. Why not? Um, and go back. And there we are. All right, and now the last step I did on this one, although I'm not sure you'll be able to tell, is I actually went in and I emphasized a few lines with a pen here, and this is just going to help kind of sell the fact that these are in fact separate pieces of bark or whatever, and that these grooves are not literally a millimeter, half a millimeter deep, but are actually far deeper than that. So we're going to take a little pen here, and we're just going to go over it like so. Okay. And darken that up. Now, this is the back of the head, and I'm not particularly worried about doing a good job on this. This is more of just a demonstration for you guys to kind of see the effects that you can get here, to just kind of help emphasize the different pieces of, I guess, bark or whatever, and just kind of help sell the look of it. Like right here, I should probably do it in camera, right? Like right here, let's just darken that piece up a little bit. You know, when you do the dry brushing technique, you tend to lose some detail sometimes. And so on this guy, let's try to make this look like it's more than just a single little blob. You know, I'm just tracing it out a little bit, just to try to break it up a little bit. And of course, you know, from more than a foot away, it's going to look different. It's going to look more convincing. You'll notice right in here, this particular line, the dry brushing, because the groove is so shallow, the dry brushing got in there and we lost our black. So we'll just add a little bit back in there. And it looks like a different piece now. Okay, and we can repeat this as much as we want until we get the desired look that we're going for. Let's see. Now I don't have it right now, but the way I would finish a piece like this is I would grab some sort of clear coat at a hardware store and go over it, because this is cheap paint. This is not a durable paint scheme, and so you kind of want to protect it a little bit. And if you can do that with a little $3 can of clear coat, then by all means. I would consider, you know, depending on your project, what kind of gloss factor you want on your clear coat, because that can absolutely make or break your project. You saw initially when I painted this in green and it had the satin finish, that it looked like plastic. And were I to spray paint this again, spray it again with another clear coat that has any kind of gloss factor to it, it would again revert to that kind of plasticky look. So take great care when picking out what color clear coat you want to finish something with. You would think something like a metal would be high gloss, but I found that the high gloss again gives a plasticky look, and so you want, I think on raw I used a semi-gloss or satin, just to give it just a little sheen, because metal has a little sheen, but it really comes down to the character of the highlight from the light, and And so, you know, I'd recommend experimenting on some test pieces before choosing your final gloss or lack thereof. You know, we can take this again. That doesn't look like there's layers of wood going on here, so we can just fake those layers of wood. Smoke and mirrors. We used to say that in the animation. You know, everything was just smoke and mirrors. And it's true. There we are. That looks a little bit better. And there you have it. Thanks a lot, folks.